Hello and welcome to another Blues focused match preview where now we are set to face Bolton Wanderers at the Toughsheet Community Stadium after a fantastic win against second place Wycombe Wanderers at St Andrews, where we beat them 1-0 to move 12 points clear at the top of League One with a game in hand. A really phenomenal run of form. I mean, I've just got some of the statistics laid out here. So it's 76 points after 32 games, which is a record for League One, which is absolutely phenomenal, and an unbeaten streak now in the league, which stretches to 19 games should we beat Bolton Wanderers on this midweek game, and 4 goals conceded in the last 18 league games, which is absolutely phenomenal to see. And huge credit to the back line as well as Ryan Alsop in goal, who actually provided the assist for that Taylor Gardner-Hickman goal. A fantastic volley after a fantastic pass from Ryan Alsop, and that is now Gardner-Hickman's second goal in 2 games after not scoring all season for Blues. So really happy for Gardner-Hickman, someone that's now signed a deal to join Blues permanently and has really been an integral part as part of this running, really, because you see that he can just play in lots of different positions, has filled in a lot of different spaces as well, and has done very well recently. Obviously, the absence of Jay Stansfield and Keshi Anderson not, I guess, reacting to our results that badly in terms of us still maintaining this unbeaten home league record. And hopefully, as I said, we can stretch this unbeaten run in the league to 19 games should we get a result against Bolton Wanderers, who themselves had a bit of a resurgence recently. 10 points in the last 4 games. Stephen Schumacher, now the manager of Bolton Wanderers, someone that done a pretty good job at Plymouth a couple of seasons ago in League One, got them promoted, actually promoted as champions ahead of that Ipswich Town team that has gone on to get back-to-back promotions. But in terms of Bolton's season, they had Ian Evatt at the start of it, someone that had been manager at Bolton for 5 years, but things kind of soured with him. Now Schumacher's the man tasked with leading them back to the championship, and they're in 7th place at the moment, so very much part of that chasing pack. And it's going to be an interesting game because the last game we played against them was that 2-0 victory in August, where Tomoki Iwata scored that side foot volley, which I still think is the goal of the season. I know there's so many great goals to choose from, but I'm still going with that Iwata volley and a Jay Stansfield penalty making short on that day. But now looking forward to this March class. We spoke to Matt from the Lion of Vienna podcast, and we're kind of going to do these match previews in the same way as the Wycombe one for the foreseeable future. So we'll have my segment here at the start, and then we'll speak to the opposition fan going forward in an extended interview. So here's Matt from the Lion of Vienna to get the lowdown on Bolton's season so far, predictions for the game as well as predictions for the rest of the season. And as for my prediction for this game, I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory. I'm really liking our defensive shape at the moment. We don't look too threatening going forward because I know the second half against Wycombe, there was a little bit of a wobble, wasn't there, in terms of Wycombe when they went down to 10 men. They actually grew into the game in the second half, and I suppose that's down to their tactical configuration and maybe us not putting away our chances. So hopefully a 1-0 victory should put us in good stead in terms of maybe even extending our lead to the top of League One by more points. But here's Matt from the Line of Vienna to speak about Blues versus Bolton. Right, so for today's podcast, we are joined by Matt Harrison from Lion of Vienna. And in terms of Bolton's season so far, Matt, you very much have to say it's a season of, I would say 2 halves, but I guess from 2024 to 2025, right?
Yeah, more specifically, I would say August to late January, and and then like early February, I guess, to or late January to now. Yeah, it was weird going into the season. There was a lot of expectation. I mean, obviously, you guys coming down from the championship, um, it's you guys are a little bit of a pariah, I would say. In terms of, it's obviously been well documented about the money that you've spent, but I'm not, it's pointless doing that because we've that point's been made 1,000 times and you're just a great team in this league, right? We were coming into this season sort of on the back of the playoff final loss. And after a season of finishing fifth and not going up and not reaching the playoff final when we lost against Barnsley, and then last season where we really should have gone up automatically. And when you look at the fixtures from last season, where we just, I mean, we've had a knack of not being able to beat the teams around us, but at the same time, it's arguably worse the points that we dropped against in games where we just should never have dropped points. And when you look at, you can scrutinise it in as much detail as you want, but we lost 3-1 at home to Carlisle. We did the same against Bristol Rovers. Like tiny little games like that, We didn't quite make the automatics. Went to the playoff final, got schooled by Oxford, um, and here we are in this season where like the expectation was on you guys to win the league, but by all accounts, as far as I could see, people were backing us to finish second. So um, it's not been anywhere near the sort of level that we thought it would be, and there has been some sort of hangover from that playoff final, whatever it's been, like psychological barrier or whatnot. But yeah, we find ourselves where we are right now. Managerial change has given a bit of life back into the season. Um, and yeah, we find ourselves now in a different place than when we played you the first time round, but at the same time, um, you guys are still obviously the best team in the league, so we'll just see how it goes tomorrow night, I guess.
And you say you're in a different place now to the last time that we played you guys, and you speak about the previous seasons before. Of course, the manager then was Ian Evatt, someone that had signed as part of Bolton 2020, and then 2025 it came to an end. And in terms of his 5 years in charge, you certainly had your high moments getting out of League Two, and then the low moments, I suppose, with the playoff final loss last season. And as you said, the hangover, we didn't quite recover from it. So, in terms of Ian Evatt's tenure in charge, could you say now that you look back at it and say that it was positive, although the way that it did end was quite negative?
It's a good question. I think a lot of Bolton fans, because it's still quite fresh. It's only been Schumacher's only been in the building really like 4 weeks now, I think, and Evatt got sacked maybe 2 weeks before that. Um, so there's not been a lot of time for the dust to settle. Um, so a lot of people will still, I would say, look back on it with sort of like recency bias and be like, he was awful, and never let him near a football club again. Like he didn't help himself in the way he conducted himself in interviews, and was very stubborn in terms of like his tactical setup at times. Um, like we would go into games and we always said it must be so easy setting up against us because teams just knew what we were going to do. We would never vary in system or formation or whatever. It would be right. We're playing three at the back, five at the back, whichever way you look at it. Wing backs, three in midfield, two up front. That's it. And I think the only exception, off the top of my head, for this season under Evatt was when we came to you guys and we played like a 5-4-1 because we just had a ton of injuries. So other than that, really, there was no real flexibility, I would say. But I have a lot of fond memories of the time that Ian Evatt was here. Um, you know, it really sort of reignited my passion for Wanderers. Way back in the League Two season, because before that it's just one big like murky mess in my head. I can't like differentiate the seasons from each other, but it marked a bit of a fresh start, and there were really good times. And as frustrating as it was, I think it would be a disservice to him and the sort of because he was passionate about the club. I think it would be a disservice to say he was awful because he wasn't, and we were a good team last season. We were good enough to finish third, but we weren't good enough to do what we outwardly and outspokenly said we wanted to do, which is get automatic promotion. So I think a lot of people will look back on that and on this season and sort of go, no, not good enough. He was awful. When I don't think it's quite as cut and dry as that, to be honest.
Yeah, and now Steven Schumacher is the man in charge of Bolton. And in terms of his managerial career so far, he had a really good spell with Plymouth Argyle, got them promoted above the Ipswich Town team that got back-to-back promotions, but it didn't go so well for him at Stoke. And now that he finds himself at Bolton, how have you evaluated his start at Bolton? Because from the outside, it looks like you guys have hit a bit of a run, 10 points in your last four games. So how's it been in terms of watching Schumacher ball as such, and I suppose the less stubbornness approach that you say from Evatt to Schumacher?
Well, that's the big thing. That's the big thing. Do you know what's really nice is with Evatt, like I said, there would be one system, one formation, and even the subs in game, it'd be like for like. So if you took off um, a forward player, you would replace him with another forward player, or if you took off a central midfielder, that it'd be the same thing. With Schumacher, when you get the little graphic when the team comes out at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, we have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know whether it's going to be a 4-3-3, whether we're going to be playing with a back five, but whether it's going to be sort of like a 4-2-3-1 or whatever. It's not. We've not once gone into a game this season knowing what he's going to do. In game, far more flexible than Ian ever has been. Um, we against Leighton Orient, I think it was, where we won 2-1 at home. We started in a 4-3-3. Didn't really. I mean, for the first 20 minutes, we were pretty dominant. Then after that, they managed to get back into the game, and then they scored, and then at half time, whatever he said worked because we came out. There was a change made at half time, something that Everett wouldn't have done. Made proactive, pragmatic substitutions, like they were to progress and dealing with the game at hand rather than being like, we're Bolton Wanderers, we set up this way, we're going to beat the same drum, and if you don't like it, lump it, sort of thing. Um, yeah, we switched at half time, took a midfielder off, I think, from memory. And then, yeah, we played what looked like it looked like a weird like adaptation of a 4-4-2, but I don't really know. I'm not tactically astute enough to to work it out. And then when we were 2-1 up, we switched to a back five at the end, and it's been like the main difference, as you just sort of touched on, is the fact that we have been so under Schumacher, we've been so much more fluid, flexible, and flexible tactically. Um, and yeah, it's a huge change considering in modern day football terms, Ian Evatt was here for so long, and ever since we came up from League Two, really, we played the same system, same formation. So yeah, it's nice, and we've had to come from behind a couple of times under Schumacher, but it's something that is refreshing as well because we didn't just roll over as soon as we conceded or one or two. We didn't just go, oh well, that's that done with. Then on to the next one. It was more like, hang on a sec, we can. If you score two, we'll score three. It's been real good. Yeah, positive at the moment.
So the manager's improved, the tactical shape's improved. Have any of players improved in terms of individuals that perhaps weren't getting minutes before that have now come into the team? Because you see that so often, don't you, where past managers have froze players out and then all of a sudden there's a new manager in and there's just that added boost to them. So has there been any players that have profited so far from Stephen Schumacher's time in charge?
Yeah, so as with any football club, you have your scapegoats and you have the players that will take just pelters every game, no matter what happens. Whether they have like a 6 out of 10, in some fans' eyes, they'll have played a 2 out of 10. Um, the main one that comes to my head is Josh Dakers-Cogley, who came up through the Birmingham Academy. Um, Signed him from Tranmere the start of last season. Um, he was played at right wing back, and he was all right. He was a probably a 6 out of 10. He had some shockers, but he's a League One footballer. So you're gonna expect that. Um, he never really gave a 9 out of 10, but also it might be kind of unfair because he was stepping into the shoes that Connor Bradley left. So I think anybody going into that trying to fill those shoes, it's a pretty impossible job. But this season, um, well, when Schumacher's come in, he's played him as a right back, which is where Tranmere got the best out of him. Rather than playing at right centre half or right wing back, he's just been made when he's in a back four. He's played in his natural position, and he's given consecutive sort of like 7 out of 10s, I'd say. And particularly Will Forrester, who is amazing at the moment. He plays in the middle of if we're playing a back five, he plays in the middle. And sort of like the right side is centre half of a four. He's just been mental, just been really good, and he's not really had a run of games in the team. He had some rotten luck at the start of the season where he fell down the stairs and broke his toe. Um, yeah, at the same time as well that our number 9, Victor Adebayo, got injured through sneezing too hard. So that's a whole other thing.
These when
um,
things aren't going your way, they really going aren't they going the way, are you?
Tell me about it. Um, but yeah, so Forrester had a a bit of bad luck, but he's now starting to get a run in the team, which any player needs really, and he's confident, and he's just been great since we played Huddersfield. Um, yeah, he's just been so solid, just heads everything. Not massively quick, but his positioning is just great. And considering, I think he's just under 6 foot. I think he's 5'10" or something. Um, when we played Wrexham at the weekend, he made, I think it was 13 clearances and 10 of them were headers. And he's not that tall, so his positioning is just great and knows where to be, reads it really well. So yeah, Will Forrester and Josh Dacres-Cogley, I would say, are the two that have really you've really seen a benefit from the change in manager, I'd say.
And in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of Bolton's team, like I looked at the league table and I'd seen that Bolton have actually scored two less goals than Birmingham this season, which isn't that big of a gap. And then you look at the goals conceded, and that
Oh
is
mate,
quite
yeah.
big. So, in terms of looking at the league table, you could perhaps see that that's where the strengths lie in terms of scoring goals and the weaknesses when it comes to defending your own goal. And Steven Schumacher, so far in the 6 games in charge, they've kept one clean sheet. So, have you seen improvements in the defensive side of things? And also, have you seen maybe a little bit of a drop off in the goal scoring things? Because you said about, if the other team scores two, then we'll score three. So, is that philosophy something that you think would work long term?
No, not really. um, yeah, it's weird. Like with Everett from August through to late January, we would just concede pathetic goals, and we got drilled by Huddersfield in September, I think it was, and then we had a run of games where I think we won four on the spin and drew one. Um, Convincing wins as well. I think we went to Northampton and won 4-2. We were 4-0 up in like the 89th minute or something, and then they scored two real sloppy goals for us to concede. Um, Stephen is your way. They hardly conceded, and we went there and won 4-1. And you think, all right, things are turning a corner a little bit now. And then we get slapped 5-0 by Stockport. And there was just no consistency anywhere. And obviously to do something in a league like this, you need consistency is the most important thing. Like you just need to be effective and consistent. And we weren't any of that. Um, with Schumacher, since he's come in, it's weird. It's not really we've conceded we conceded three against Crawley, two against Shrewsbury, one against Leighton Orient, and then none against Wrexham, and one against Reading in his first game. So we have been conceding, and especially like particularly the Crawley game, playing them at home, conceding three goals isn't ideal. But I will caveat that by saying we don't look bad defensively, and we're certainly you can see the nuts and bolts sort of like tightening a little bit, but it's more the goals that we have conceded have been from mistakes and like moments in games rather than looking at our defensive line or our shape and going, we are pathetic defensively. It's not really that. It's more just like, oh my god, why is that player doing this thing at this moment? Um, but over the last couple of games, we've looked a lot better. And yeah, against Wrexham at the weekend, we were solid. Um, Horrible game of football to watch, but it was it was kind of nice to see a 0-0 really, rather than conceding and having to come from behind, because we'd done that in uh the 3 games before that. So yeah, Crawley came from behind, and then Shrewsbury came from behind, Leighton Orient came from behind. So then the Wrexham game, it was a crap 0-0, but it was kind of nice to see. Like I said, the nuts and bolts tightening a little bit on a goal scoring front. We're light up top, options wise, but John McAtee, who we'd not really seen that great form from throughout the season, seems to be starting to score at the right time in this running. So even though it doesn't feel like it, he's technically our top scorer in the league. And again, I've given him pelters all season because I've not thought he was very good, but it just shows how much I know, you know.
As you say about the tactical things, we're just the people in the stands that watch, and we just let the players and the manager do their own thing.
That's so true, man.
And looking forward
So
now
true.
to Tuesday night, like with everything that we've just said, how do you see the game panning out? Because I think from a Blues perspective, recently we've been so solid at the back, but they're not necessarily blowing teams away because you'd think a team that's top of the league by as much as we are would be like winning, 4-0, 5-0 every week. But our biggest margin of victory is the 4 goals against Cambridge, and then it's three, I think, against Wigan. So in terms of Bolton, you guys look very prolific going forward, a bit weaker at the back. So could it be a situation where you get a game where both teams end up scoring and it's just who could score the most?
I hope it's not that. My heart. I've got heart problems in my family. I don't think I can take that, man. But yeah, it's weird. We said this on our podcast last night that um, in the last few years in this league, you've had maybe two teams. Um, well, I would include yourselves in that, but then after what you've just said about you've not really gone into games and absolutely, pasted teams. You might have done statistically, but it's not like you're turning up every week and scoring 4 or 5, and Kieran Ipswich is Kieran McKenna's Ipswich in like a couple of seasons ago. Probably the last team I can remember that were just great. You just turned up and they were obviously by far and away better than everyone apart from Plymouth Argyle at the time. But you get what I'm saying. Um, so really, it's not. It doesn't really feel like a case where you will get many teams that throughout the season that will just look amazing. Like last season, we had the ability to dismantle teams on occasion. Like we beat Exeter 7-0. We beat a few real high scoring games, but then we get beat by Wigan 4-0, and we get beat by Carlisle, who finished rock bottom 3-1. So it's more that the teams that are just able to just win and just win and win and win, which is what you guys are doing. um, so yeah, I mean the impressive thing about you guys, I think, and I mean when we played you down at your place, I was so impressed with Iwata in midfield. Just I said last night, he's probably my favourite midfielder in the league. He's just great, just powerful, like quick. Scored a banger against us.
Still
Scored
my
a banger
favorite
in
goal of the
the
season, by the way. It's definitely my favorite goal
oh
because
right.
we've had like a few goals like that where Wata has just whacked it from distance. But for me, that's my favorite because that's his weak foot and he's just come onto it on the side volley and it's just breathtaking.
Just so good, and he scored a similar. Was it in the FA Cup?
Yeah, against
Maybe
Newcastle, he
yeah.
scored a great goal there.
So like yeah, he's great, man. And going forward, like you guys are clearly very good, and you've got a lot of depth. With Stansfield, who isn't. Will he be available tomorrow? I mean,
It's a
he's
mystery.
not been.
Honestly,
It's a
Matt, like
mystery.
with us,
Okay,
you could ask 10 people and they'd all give you different answers as to when he's going to
okay,
be available. So,
all right.
yeah, it's a bit of a lottery, that one.
Well, we'll hope not. But then you've got Alfie May, who's class as well. So yeah, I think from our point of view, as tight as we can keep it, the better. Because I don't think um, if you were to score first and particularly a couple, I don't see us finding a way back. Um, we're light up front with injuries and stuff, so we've only really got two strikers, and they're like adapted strikers rather than someone that has grown up playing as a number 9 and has come through academies playing as a number 9. And we've got Aaron Collins, who has traditionally played at just off the left for Bristol Rovers and for Forest Green, I think. Um, and then John McAtee, who is just a bit of a mystery, bit of a maverick man. He doesn't really feel like he's a number nine or a winger or a midfielder. So he's just sort of a forward player. So we don't really have a lot of depth going forward. So for us, I would say the tighter we can keep it, the better. Um, so we're gonna have to be really, really on job, to try and get anything from it. Um, but I'd be curious to know. I mean, you guys must be sick of winning by now. Come on, you must be bored of it. You
No,
must.
no. Honestly, the last few years that we've had, Matt, I'm not sick of winning. If anything, we could win even more. That's what I was sitting there thinking, like that Wickham game, because we weren't great in the second half. Like, I mean, I don't think we had a shot on target in the second half. But I was
Yeah.
sitting there thinking, as long as we get 3 points, I'm absolutely fine with this. And yeah, it's been a real brilliant season for us. And in terms of like our history, like in the championship, just kind of meandering towards them like relegation places. I remember playing Bolton years and years ago when we took
Mm.
like a few thousand fans and we won 1-0 and just constantly like on the edge of relegation, just fighting for survival. And now we've just had this season where, of course, we had the heartache of it finally getting relegated last season, but then this season you just feel like the narrative's kind of flipped around for us. And I feel like a few years ago when you guys got promoted from League Two, that was kind of the moment for you then to kick back on. And I kind of feel like Blues and Bolton stories parallel a little bit in terms of like the change of ownership as well, because our ownership problems weren't as bad as your guys's, but then as soon as you got people in that you actually knew who they were, you know they had good intentions, that's when things really started to change for you on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean that League Two season was weird because it was behind closed doors as well, like the lowest we've ever been, or lowest for a very very long time anyway. And growing up seeing us playing in Europe, beat Atletico Madrid, like Man United, Arsenal, and then suddenly in 2020 you're playing away at, I don't know, I can't remember, Newport County and losing. Um, it's a real sobering moment.
Mm.
um, but that it makes the come up sweeter, and I do wonder sometimes, like if with this season, for example, if we were to go up, what would happen next season? Because I'm not entirely convinced that we have the depth or the quality, I dare say, to actually like really consolidate. Um, I think in Stephen Schumacher we've made a good proactive change that I would be more confident in us being able to do that under Schumacher than I was ever. However, there's a lot of deadwood in the squad that I would say would probably need to be cleared out based on we've still got some players that were with us in League Two, like, and as nice as it is to have the sentimental side of things, you can't really afford that too much in football. Um, but yeah, yeah, like I said, it makes the come up a little bit sweeter. Having gone down there and then you guys experiencing it with League One, and then you'll be back up because I mean your squad is like it's a decent championship squad, really, isn't it? Like
Not bad.
it's not bad at all. Like, I was looking at your stats and stuff. I mean, you've conceded what 19 in 32 in the league. That is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, if you are to score first tomorrow night, it's going to be hard for us to do anything. Yeah, I. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be a really, really difficult game. You must be confident going to anyone in the league really to try and get a result.
Yeah. I'd say that I'm confident going into this game and doing the research on the Bolton side of things. Of course, you guys are as well. And I've seen Forrester's comments about not fearing anyone. That's what he said. And I think that speaks volumes as to, I guess, the rejuvenation that you guys have had in terms of the player morale and the form. And taking all this into consideration, Matt, finally just got to grab a score prediction from you and say about what content's coming up on your guys' channel too.
Oh, I hate this score prediction bit because it's always split between my head and my heart. My head says we'll lose 2-0 and it'll be a pretty routine away victory for you guys. However, However, I did say a couple of weeks back that we draw against Wrexham and then we'd beat Birmingham. So I'm going to go with my heart and I'm going to say a 1-0 win to Bolton. There's no logic in that at all, other than why not? So I'm going to go 1-0 win. Um, yeah, and Aaron Morley's going to score. Do you have a
Brilliant. Thanks so
prediction?
much for your time, Matt, and
I want to
good
know
luck
what
for the
you
rest of the
think.
season besides Tuesday.
Oh, mate, it's going to be yeah, it's going to be interesting whatever happens. But I want to know your score prediction if you have one.
Ooh,
Go on,
yeah,
what do you think
I did say
before
1
I
0 on
go?
my side of things,
One
actually,
nil.
because that seems to be what we're doing at the moment. As you said about if we get the first goal, I'm very confident that we'll win the game. And the thing is with us, once we get that first goal, it's been a bit difficult as of recently in terms of getting the high numbers because we've got Anderson missing, because we've got Stansfield missing. Alfie May at the moment's actually been on a goal drought. So it's one of those things where I feel like if Alfie May scores in this game, then he'll probably get another in the game because that's what so often happens. We've seen it with Gardner Hickman recently, where he's been waiting all season to score and then he got 2 goals in 2 games. So that's very much football in the way that things pan out. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory for Birmingham.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you very much for having me, man.
No worries. Take care.
See you later.